For a moment everything went quiet. Even Papa paused. Then something strange happened. He turned and walked away. No words. No shouting. He just walked. The woman rushed to my side. "We need to get you out of here now." She wrapped me in a cloth and helped me stand. My legs shook. My whole body trembled. But I leaned on her and walked out of that dark room for the last time. As we stepped outside, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Sunlight. Real sunlight. It touched my face and I cried. Not because I was sad but because I had forgotten what freedom felt like. That woman's name was Teresa. She was from the capital and had come to investigate reports of abuse in rural clinics. My case wasn't the first, she said. But it was the worst. She took me to a center where girls like me stayed. It was far from my village. The place smelled like flowers and warm soap. There were soft beds, clean clothes, and nurses who smiled at me like I mattered. But healing wasn't quick. I couldn't sleep for the first week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Papa's belt, his hands, his eyes. I flinched when people touched me. I didn't trust the nurses or even Teresa. I thought everyone wanted something from me. One day, Teresa sat beside me on the bed. "I know it's hard to trust again," she said, brushing my hair softly. "But you are not alone anymore." I asked her, "Why did you help me?" She looked at me for a moment and then whispered, "Because I was just like you." That was the first time I smiled in months. Slowly I began to open up. I told her everything. How it started at 9, the first time Papa came into my room, how Mama looked away, how they aborted my babies one after the other. Teresa listened. She didn't interrupt. She just held my hand. "You are brave, Mariana," she said. "What they did to you is not your fault." Those words felt like medicine. I needed them more than anything. Weeks passed and I started learning new things. I went to classes with other girls. Some of them were also survivors. We laughed sometimes. We cried sometimes. But we were healing together. But peace never lasts long. One day a letter arrived. It was from my mother. I didn't want to open it. I was shaking as I held it in my hand. Teresa sat beside me again just like before. "Do you want me to read it with you?" she asked. I nodded. She opened the envelope and pulled out the letter. The handwriting was shaky, like it was written with trembling fingers. "Mariana, I know you hate me. Maybe I deserve that. I was too weak to protect you. I should have run with you. But I didn't. I was scared. I was scared he would kill us both. I have watched you suffer every day and kept quiet. I'm so sorry. I failed you as a mother. If you can find it in your heart, forgive me. Love, Mama." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I didn't know what to feel. I wanted to be angry. But I also missed her. I remembered when she used to sing to me when I was little. How she used to braid my hair and call me Mi Reina, my queen. "She was a prisoner too," Teresa said gently. "It doesn't excuse her silence, but maybe now she's waking up." I didn't write back. Not yet. But a seed of hope had been planted. Then came the news. The police had finally arrested Papa. The village doctor had confessed everything after Teresa reported the clinic. Some nurses spoke up too. They had been keeping quiet because they were scared of Papa. But after Teresa started her work, more victims came forward. Papa was in jail. But instead of feeling happy, I felt empty. He had taken so much from me. My childhood, my innocence, my babies. My babies. Every night I thought of them. I wondered if they were boys or girls. If they had names. If they forgave me. I used to whisper to them before bed. "I'm sorry," I'd say. "I didn't get to hold you." Sometimes I saw them in my dreams. 5 little lights dancing in the sky. Teresa encouraged me to write them letters. She gave me a notebook, and I began writing to each one. To baby 1 who didn't even get to grow. To baby 2 who I thought about every time I saw the moon. To baby 3 who was taken before I even knew your name. To baby 4 who made my heart beat faster when I felt you kick. To baby 5 who almost stayed and almost saved me. Writing those letters helped me heal. It reminded me that I still had a voice. But just when things were starting to get better, I heard something that froze my blood. One of the new girls at the center was crying one night. I went to comfort her. "What's wrong?" I asked. She looked at me with swollen eyes and whispered, "My uncle, Enrique. He hurt me." My world stopped. "Enrique?" asked slowly. "Enrique what?" She sniffled. "Enrique Jimenez. That was my father's full name." My stomach turned. "What village are you from?" I asked. "Santa Reina." My legs went weak. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible, he's in jail." She looked confused. "No. He just came back to our house last week. Mama said the case was dropped." I ran to Teresa, holding the girl's words like fire in my hands. "Teresa!" cried. "He's out." She didn't believe me at first. But when we confirmed it with the center manager, it was true. Papa was free. And he was hurting other girls again. Something inside me broke all over again. But this time it wasn't fear. It was anger. Burning, sharp and loud. Teresa saw it in my eyes. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I stood tall for the first time in years. "I'm going back." "To the village?" she asked, shocked. "Mariana, it's dangerous." He nodded. "I'm not going there as a victim," I said. "I'm going there as a voice." Teresa looked into my eyes and didn't say no. She knew I had made up my mind. I was going back to face the man who destroyed me. But what I didn't know was that someone was waiting for me. And they had a secret that would change everything. The drive back to Santa Reina felt like a dream. A heavy, dusty dream filled with ghosts from the past and voices I had tried to silence for years. I sat beside Teresa in the back seat of the old government vehicle, staring out the window at the winding roads and thick trees that guarded the village like ancient secrets. As we got closer, my heart began to beat harder. The last time I was here, I was a weak, bleeding child. Now I was a teenager with scars, but also with fire in her heart. I wore the only proper dress I owned, a blue cotton one with little white flowers. Teresa had braided my hair the night before. I looked in the mirror that morning and whispered, "You are not the same girl anymore." But deep inside, I was scared. I was going back to face the devil. When we arrived, people stared. Children paused their games. Women stopped stirring pots. Men froze mid-conversation. It was like time stopped the moment they saw me step out of that vehicle. "Is that Mariana?" I heard someone whisper. "She's alive. I thought she died after the fifth one. She came back with government people." We didn't speak to anyone. We walked straight to the chief's compound. The chief was an old man named Santiago. I remembered him well. He used to call me La Pequeña Maestra, the little teacher, because I loved reading at school. He looked older now, his face weighed down with shame and silence. "Mariana," he said when he saw me. I raised my hand gently. "Please, Chief. I don't want apologies. I want justice." I told him everything. From the first time Papa hurt me to the 5 abortions to the pain. I was just 12 years old when I got pregnant for the 3rd time. Yes, the 3rd time. By then, the pain wasn't just in my body. It was buried deep in my heart, in my bones, in my silence. My belly had started to show, just like the 1st and 2nd times. But like before, they forced me into that tiny room behind the village clinic, where they took the baby out, again. They didn't ask me if I wanted it. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't even ask who was responsible. But I knew. It was my father. He abused me so much that I got pregnant 5 times. Every time they made it disappear like it was never real. Like I wasn't real. And the worst part, nobody helped me. Not my mother. Not my aunties. Not even the neighbor who saw me bleeding once and just turned her head. They said it was shame. They said, "Don't talk." They said, "Your father feeds you, doesn't he?" But what about love? What about safety? One day after the 5th abortion, I almost died. I was lying in a pool of my own blood on the cold floor of that dark room, and I saw my mother standing at the door. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just whispered, You mustn't tell anyone. Then she walked away. And that's when I decided I had to survive. Not for them, but for me. Because one day the world would hear my story. But before I take you to how I nearly died that day, let me take you back to when it all began. My name is Mariana. I was born in a small village called Santa Reina, where the trees are tall and secrets are even taller. My mother, Rosa, was quiet and soft. She smiled a lot when people were around, but her eyes always looked tired. My father, Enrique, was a strong man, a respected farmer. People greeted him with honor. Don Enrique, they would say, may your farm yield greatly this season. But no one knew what happened behind closed doors. First, everything seemed normal. I would help Mama with cooking, and I would play with my little brother Mateo after school. I loved school. It was the only place I felt free. I liked reading, especially stories about brave girls who ran away and found happiness. I wanted to be one of them. But things changed on my 9th birthday. That night, Papa came into my room. I was wearing my favorite pink dress that Mama had sewn for me. I had just blown out the candles on my small cake, and I had wished to become a teacher one day. I never knew that wish would vanish so quickly. He closed the door behind him, and I remember how the air changed. My skin turned cold. I was scared, but I didn't understand why. He sat beside me and said, "You're growing up now. You must learn how to take care of a man." I didn't know what that meant. But what followed broke me in ways no child should ever experience. I didn't scream. Couldn't. My voice was trapped in my throat like a bird in a cage. The next morning I couldn't walk properly. Mama saw me limping and asked if I had fallen. I nodded yes. She brought me hot water and salt to bathe my feet. But her eyes said she knew more than she admitted. And that was the first time. It didn't stop. It happened again. And again. Sometimes once a week. Sometimes every night. I stopped going to school often. Became quiet. I forgot how to smile. My teachers sent letters, but Papa burned them. When I was 10, my stomach started getting big. I didn't understand at first, until Mama slapped me one day and screamed, "How could you do this to us?" I didn't understand. She dragged me to the clinic. The nurse looked at me with disgust. "Who is the father?" she asked. Mama said nothing. And just like that, they made the baby go away. No one ever asked me if I was okay. The pain of that first abortion still haunts me. I remember crying through the night, hugging my pillow, asking God, "Why me?" But God was silent. The second pregnancy came at 11. I had started developing, and the women in the market would whisper, "That girl is maturing fast." They didn't know it was because of what my father was doing. Mama didn't even shout the second time. She just took me straight to the clinic. I tried to tell the nurse it was Papa. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't you ever say that again." And then the third time came. That was when my body started breaking down. I started fainting in the kitchen. My heart beat fast all the time. I was always tired, always cold. The nurses warned Mama, if she does this again, she may not survive. But the abuse didn't stop. Papa told me one night, "If you speak, I will kill your mother and your brother." And I believed him. I became a ghost in my own home. At school I started writing letters I never sent. I wrote to God. I wrote to the police. I wrote to a woman I saw on TV who helped abused children. But I never posted them. I just kept them in a box under my bed, hoping someone would find them someday. Then came the fourth pregnancy. I was 12. This time my body didn't bleed much. I almost believed maybe this baby would stay. I even whispered to it at night, "Maybe you'll save me." But it didn't last. One morning I found myself lying in the school bathroom floor, covered in blood. Teacher screamed. The students watched. I was taken to the clinic again. I don't remember much of that day. Just Mama crying and the nurse shaking her head. I should have died that day. But I didn't. And then came the fifth. It was the most painful. The baby was already big. My belly had stretched, and people in the village had started asking questions. That was when Papa forced me to stay indoors all day. He said I had a disease. He locked my window, took away my books, and kept me in the dark. When Mama finally took me to the clinic, the nurses said it was too late. But they did it anyway. That was the day I almost died. When I woke up, I was lying on the cold floor, and I saw blood all around me. The nurse had gone out to get help. My mother stood at the door with her arms folded. She didn't move. She didn't cry. She only said, "You mustn't tell anyone." Then she left. I closed my eyes and thought I was dead. But then, I heard a voice. Soft, warm voice. It said, "You are not alone." I opened my eyes. And that's when I saw her. Woman. Dressed in white. Standing over me with tears in her eyes. I tried to speak. She knelt down and whispered, "I've been looking for you, Mariana." Before I could say anything, the clinic door burst open. And standing there was Papa. With a belt in his hand, Papa's face was full of fire. His eyes were wide, and his chest was rising and falling like a wild animal ready to strike. He held that brown leather belt the same way he always did, tight and high. I froze where I was, still too weak to move. The woman in white stood between us. "Who are you?" Papa barked. "I'm the new social health officer assigned to this district," she replied calmly, but her eyes didn't blink. "And this girl is coming with me." Papa laughed. A dry, ugly laugh. "That is my daughter. You don't take her anywhere unless I say so." "She's not safe with you," the woman said, her voice low but strong. "I know everything. I've read the reports. I've seen the bruises. I saw the pregnancy." Papa took a step forward. "You don't know anything, woman. My family is my business. And that girl is a liar." I wanted to scream, to tell her to run. But I could barely whisper. "She's bleeding," the woman said, not moving. "She needs proper care. If you touch her again, I'll make sure you're in jail before the sun sets." The lies, and how now he had hurt another girl. I showed him the letters I had written to my babies. I showed him medical reports and pictures of my bruises. Teresa had prepared everything. He listened in silence. Everyone in the compound listened. Even the sky seemed to listen. Finally he spoke. "We failed you." Then he stood up and looked at the elders. "Tonight we hold a village meeting. No more silence. No more hiding monsters." But what happened next shook me to my core. As we left the chief's house, a woman ran toward us from the path. She was barefoot, with her hair flying wildly behind her. Her eyes were wide with panic. "Mariana," she cried. "He knows you're here. He's coming." It was my mother. She looked thinner than before. Her cheeks were hollow and her voice trembled. She grabbed my hand and pulled me aside. "You have to leave," she said. "He's angry. He says if he sees you, he'll finish what he started." "I'm not afraid," I said. But her next words made my knees buckle. "He brought a gun." I turned to Teresa. Her face paled. "We need to act fast," she said. But before we could decide what to do, there was shouting in the distance. Then gunshots. 3 loud cracks split the air. People screamed. I was frozen. Then I saw him. My father. Enrique Jimenez. He marched down the main path of the village, holding a black pistol in one hand and a bottle in the other. His shirt was stained with sweat and dust, and his eyes were wild. "Where is he?" he shouted. "Where is that witch who brought shame to my name?" I could hear children crying, mothers dragging their kids behind doors. Some men tried to stop him, but he fired the gun into the air again. That was when I did something no one expected. I stepped forward. "Papa!" shouted. His eyes locked on mine. Everything went silent. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. "You," he growled. "You should be dead." "No," I said. "I lived. I survived everything you did to me. And I'm not hiding anymore." He raised the gun. "Shut up," he screamed. "You lied to them. You think you're better than me." Teresa moved behind me slowly, signaling the security officers who had arrived with us. They had stayed in the background until now. But I didn't move. Look at me, Papa, I said. Do I look like a liar? Do I look like the child you destroyed? He hesitated. His hand shook. I did it for love, he mumbled. You were mine. No, I said. I was your daughter. That's when Teresa gave the signal. The officers rushed forward. Papa fired once but missed. They tackled him to the ground. The gun flew out of his hand. He screamed and kicked, but they pinned him down and put him in cuffs. The whole village watched. It was over. Or thought it was. As the officers dragged him away, he shouted something that made my blood turn to ice. She's not even my daughter. The whole village gasped. I stood frozen. Teresa turned to me. What did he say? I looked at my mother. Her face went white. I stepped closer. Mama, what did he mean by that? She broke down, fell to her knees, covered her face. I never told you, she sobbed. You were not Enrique's child. He married me when I was already pregnant. He knew. But he made me promise never to speak of it. My mouth went dry. Then who is my father? Mama looked up slowly. Her lips trembled. You've seen him before, she whispered. He visits the village once a year. The man who always gives the children sweets. The rich man from the city. My mind raced. Mr. Alejandro. The rich man with the gray beard and kind smile. He always came to donate food to the school. He had once looked at me for a long time and said, You remind me of someone. I fell to the ground. The truth was too heavy. All my life, I didn't even know who I really was. And the man who destroyed me wasn't even my blood. The pain returned, but so did the fire. Because now I wasn't just a survivor. I was a daughter with a new mission. To find out where I came from. To find out who I was. And to ask one question I never thought I'd ask in my life. Why did my real father leave me with a monster? I couldn't sleep that night. I lay on a mat in the chief's guest hut, staring at the roof made of dry palm leaves. The stars outside blinked quietly, as if they too were whispering secrets. The entire village had gone silent after my father. No, Enrique was taken away by the police. But my heart refused to be still. He wasn't my father. He never was. All this time, I had believed I carried the blood of the man who abused me. But I didn't. That truth brought some comfort, but it also left a burning question inside me. Who am I really? Mama didn't speak much after her confession. She cried in Teresa's arms like a broken child. I wanted to protect her, she kept saying. I was afraid if I told her, Enrique would kill us both. The chief had ordered the elders to meet again the next morning to help me get justice. Real justice this time. But I wasn't thinking about courts or punishments anymore. I just wanted to find Alejandro. The man from the city. The man who looked at me like he had something to say. Teresa, I said, sitting up suddenly. I need to go to the city. I need to find him. She looked at me with concern. Mariana, you just survived something terrible. Maybe wait. No, I said. I need to know why he left me behind. By noon we had packed our few things and began the trip back to the capital. Mama didn't come with us. She said she wasn't strong enough to face him and maybe she didn't want to. I still hadn't forgiven her, but my heart softened when I saw how small she looked sitting alone outside the hut, hugging her knees like a scared child. The drive was quiet. I held a piece of paper in my hand, the address of Alejandro's company, written by the chief who once helped him buy land in Santa Reina. It was a tall building in the city, surrounded by glass and flowers and busy people. We entered the lobby, and Teresa asked the receptionist if we could speak with Mr. Alejandro Jimenez. Do you have an appointment? The woman asked politely. No, I said. But tell him it's about his daughter from Santa Reina. The receptionist paused. Then she picked up the phone and dialed. Less than 5 minutes later, a tall man appeared in the hallway. Froze. There he was. The man I had seen a dozen times in the village. The one who brought sugar and notebooks for the children. His beard was grayer now, and his eyes had more lines. But I could still see it, the softness in his gaze, the sadness. He looked at me and stopped walking. Then he whispered, "It's you." I stepped forward. Are you my real father?" He didn't answer. He walked slowly until he was standing right in front of me. Then he fell to his knees. "I've been waiting for this day," he said. "I didn't know how to find you. Your mother. She disappeared after she married that man. I wanted to come for you, but she blocked every door. She said you were safe. I believed her. I didn't know." His voice cracked. "I didn't know what he was doing to you." Tears filled my eyes. "But you saw me all those times," I whispered. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I was scared," he said, bowing his head. "I thought maybe I had no right." I looked at him for a long moment. "Then earn it now," I said. "Be my father now." He looked up at me and nodded. That evening, he took us to his home, a quiet, beautiful house with big windows and walls covered in pictures of landscapes. I saw no family photos, no wife, no other children. "I never married," he said as we sat in the living room. "I always hoped that one day I'd find you and bring you here. But when you stopped coming to school, when I stopped seeing you, I thought you had died." Teresa held my hand tightly. "She didn't die," she said. "She survived. And now she needs answers." Alejandro sat back and told us everything. When he met my mother, she was working as a cleaner in the city. They fell in love, but his family refused to accept her. She returned to the village without telling him she was pregnant. Years later, he found out she had married Enrique and told everyone I was his child. He went to the village, but Mama pushed him away, said I was fine, and never let him near me again. She was scared of Enrique, he said. I didn't understand it then. But I do now. We talked for hours. About my favorite color. My dreams of being a teacher. The names I had secretly given to my unborn babies. He cried when I told him about them. "I should have been there," he whispered. "To protect you." Later that night, I sat alone in the garden. I looked up at the stars and whispered to my babies. "I found him," I said. "I found the one who should have held us safe." A soft wind passed by. Felt like an answer. But just as I began to feel peace for the first time, there was a knock on the door. Teresa answered. Then came running. "Mariana," she said breathlessly. "We need to talk. Now." I rushed to the door. 2 police officers stood there. "Is she Mariana Jimenez?" one asked. "Yes," I said, heart pounding. "We have reason to believe that your father, Enrique, escaped custody during a prison transfer earlier today." I felt the air leave my lungs. "What?" "He's missing," the officer said. "And we believe he's trying to find you." The world spun around me. Alejandro pulled me into his arms. But deep inside I knew. This wasn't over. The monster was still out there. And this time he had nothing to lose. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The police officers stayed outside Alejandro's house, standing guard in case Enrique showed up. But no amount of security could calm the storm inside me. I lay in a bed that smelled like safety, yet my body felt like it was back in that tiny room at the clinic. Back when my legs were too weak to move. Back when the monster still lived under the same roof as me. He had escaped. He was coming. And this time he wouldn't care about hiding. Teresa stayed in the room next to mine. She kept checking on me, her face pale, her voice gentle. Alejandro tried to be strong, but I could see the fear in his eyes too. He blamed himself for not protecting me then, for not keeping me safe now. I sat by the window, staring out at the moon, hugging a pillow to my chest. That was when I saw it. Shadow. Moving. Quick. Behind the bushes across the road. My heart leapt. I grabbed my phone and called Teresa. "There's someone outside," I whispered. She came running with one of the guards. They searched the area. Nothing. But I knew what I saw. And I knew who it was. The next day, the police added more officers to the house. Alejandro hired private security too. The windows were sealed. The gate's locked. But still, I didn't feel safe. Teresa tried to distract me with activities. We went to a youth counseling center in the city. There I met other girls like me. Some had been abused by family, others by strangers. All of them had pain buried in their eyes. But we smiled. We played games. We shared secrets. We painted, wrote poems, even sang songs. Help. Little. One afternoon during a group session I stood up and told my story. Everything. From the first night Papa touched me, to the 5 pregnancies, to the abortions, to the lies, to his escape. The room was silent when I finished. Then one girl stood up and clapped. Then another. Then another. Soon the room echoed with applause. Not because of the story, but because I had survived it. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. For the first time I didn't feel dirty. Felt strong. But just when I started to feel light again, he came back. It happened on a Sunday. I was helping Teresa in the backyard. The sun was hot, and we were planting flowers Alejandro had bought for me. He said they were for the new Garden of Hope. We were laughing when a car screeched to a halt in front of the house. A woman ran toward the gate, screaming my name. It was my cousin Lucia. I hadn't seen her in years. She looked terrified. "Mariana," she cried. "He found Mama. He's holding her hostage." I dropped the spade. "Who?" I asked, but my body already knew the answer. "Enrique," she sobbed. "He came to our house last night. He said if you don't meet him, he'll kill her." Alejandro and Teresa came rushing out. The guards pulled Lucia aside and asked for details. "He said to meet him at the old cocoa warehouse by the river," she said. "At sunset. Alone." The police tried to stop me. Teresa begged me not to go. But I couldn't let my mother die. Not after everything. Not when she was finally trying to be a mother again. "I have to go," I said. Alejandro grabbed my shoulders. "We'll go with you." "No," I said. He said alone. "If he sees anyone else, he'll hurt her." We argued for an hour, but in the end, I made them promise to stay back. I agreed to wear a hidden tracker Teresa gave me and a small panic button in my pocket. The police would follow from a distance. I wore black pants and a long shirt. I didn't want to look like a little girl anymore. I wanted him to see a woman coming for him. The road to the old cocoa warehouse was empty. The sky was turning orange, and the birds had started flying low. The place had been abandoned for years. No roof, just broken walls and rusted machines. I stepped inside. The air smelled like metal and dust. Then I saw them. My mother tied to a chair. And Enrique, holding a gun. My legs shook, but I stood tall. "You came," he said, smiling. "Let her go," I said. He laughed. "You think you're in charge now?" He walked slowly toward me. "You ruined me, Mariana. You made me look like a monster to the world." "You are a monster," I said. "And I'm not afraid of you anymore." He stopped, then lowered the gun slightly. "Why did you come alone?" he asked. "Because I wanted to look you in the eye one last time," I said. "To say goodbye." Suddenly I pressed the panic button. He saw my hand move and raised the gun again. "You think I didn't expect that?" But before he could pull the trigger, a shot rang out. Not from him. From behind. He dropped his gun. Screamed. Blood poured from his shoulder. Police officers burst through the broken wall. They surrounded him, shouting commands. My mother screamed. I ran to her, untied her ropes, and hugged her tightly. "It's over," I whispered. "It's over, Mama." Enrique lay on the ground, groaning in pain. One of the officers kicked the gun away. This time there was no escape. He was done. And I was free. As we rode back to the city in the police van, I held my mother's hand. She cried the whole way. I didn't stop her. For once, her tears felt real. Back home, Teresa and Alejandro waited at the door. I ran into Alejandro's arms. "You did it," he said. "No," I whispered. "We did it." That night I slept deeply. No nightmares. No voices. No darkness. Only peace. But just as I thought the past was buried, a letter arrived. No name. No stamp. Just a small note left under the gate. Opened it. There were only 7 words. I'm not the only one, Mariana. And just like that, the nightmare wasn't over. I remember that night like it was carved into my bones. I was 15 years old. I had just come back from the market. My dress was soaked from the rain, and I was shivering. I walked into the house, hoping to quickly dry myself before Father returned. But I was wrong. He was already there, sitting in the dark, waiting for me like a shadow. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me. I froze at the door, my hands clutching the bag of maize I had bought. Then slowly he stood up, walked to me, and snatched the bag from my hand. Without warning, he slapped me hard across the face. I staggered and fell. You think you're a woman now, he hissed. You walk like your mother, proud, disrespectful. Let me teach you who you belong to. That night he did the worst. It wasn't the first time, but it was the roughest. He left me bleeding, crying, and gasping for air. I wanted to scream, but my voice was buried in pain. When he was done, he walked away like nothing happened. I curled up in the corner, holding my stomach, whispering to God to take me away. 3 weeks later, I noticed my body had changed. I wasn't throwing up, but I could feel something was different. My breasts were sore. I was always tired. Then the bleeding stopped. I knew it. I was pregnant again. That would be the 4th. I didn't tell anyone. Not that I had anyone to tell. Had no friends. My brothers avoided me like I was a curse. My stepmother, Rosa, called me La Vergenza. The shame. Even if I tried to speak, who would believe me? A young girl with no power, abused by her own father. Rosa found out first. She caught me throwing up one morning and dragged me to the backyard. You stupid girl, she screamed. You're doing this on purpose. Trying to bring shame to my house. Again. She stormed inside and told Father. That same day, they took me to the same nurse in the small wooden hut behind the church. She didn't ask questions. She never did. She simply looked at me with tired eyes, gave me a bitter tea, then stuck something painful inside me that made me scream. I bled for days. I thought I was going to die that time. But somehow I survived. They acted like nothing happened. I was back to sweeping floors, washing pots, and scrubbing my father's dirty boots while my body ached from the inside out. But something inside me had changed. One evening, while scrubbing the floor, my father stepped over me and said, "Don't forget who feeds you. If you open your mouth, you'll be out on the street." He didn't scare me the way he used to. 'Cause I had a secret. 2 months before, I had started writing everything in a little black book I found in the trash. I would wake up in the middle of the night and write down everything. What he did to me, the dates, how I felt, what Rosa said. I hid the book under a loose floorboard beneath my bed. It was my truth, my only weapon. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but it gave me power, like I had a voice when no one would listen. Then came the day everything exploded. Father had returned home drunk. I was in the kitchen cooking rice. He stormed in and shouted that the food was late. I said softly, "It's almost ready." He slapped me. Then he dragged me into the room and locked the door. I cried and begged, but it didn't matter to him. This time I screamed louder than I ever had before. My voice cracked through the wooden walls. And someone heard. Not Rosa. Not my brothers. But someone from outside. Our neighbor, Don Mateo, an old retired soldier who rarely spoke, was walking past and heard me screaming. He banged on the door. "Abrala! Open this door now," he shouted. Father shouted back, "Mind your business, old man." But Don Mateo didn't back down. He returned 5 minutes later with 2 police officers. They broke down the door. And they saw him. They saw me. I was lying there on the floor, half-dressed, crying. It was the first time anyone outside my house saw what was really happening. The police arrested my father on the spot. I was taken to the hospital. That's when they found out. I was pregnant again. The 5th time. And this time everything was different. because I wasn't going to let them take it away. But just when I thought I was finally safe, something terrible happened. Rosa came to the hospital. She didn't come to apologize or care. She came to threaten me. She leaned over my bed and whispered, "If you keep that baby, I swear on my life, you won't live to see it born." And the next morning I woke up gasping. My room was on fire. The moment I screamed at the top of my lungs after the 5th abortion, something inside me broke forever. I couldn't cry anymore. I couldn't beg anymore. I just stared at the wall of the hospital bed while the doctor threw away my blood like it meant nothing. 5 children gone. Not because I wanted them gone, but because my father ordered it. And my mother, oh God, my own mother, stood there and watched it happen. I wasn't just broken, I was hollow. That night when we got back home, my father was drunk again. The stink of alcohol filled the house like poison. He looked at me with those same evil eyes and said in a low voice, "If you tell anyone, I will bury you where nobody will ever find you." I nodded like a robot, but inside I was burning. Something was building up, anger, pain, fear. It was all mixing inside me like fire and oil. And that night I made a small plan in my head. Tiny one. Not to run away, not yet. But to survive. So I started pretending. I started pretending to be quiet, obedient, sweet. Just like the girl he wanted. If he told me to clean, I did it fast. If he told me to cook, I cooked with care. My father stopped shouting as much. He stopped hitting me for a while. He even told my mother, maybe she's finally learning her place. But I was learning something else too. I was learning how to hide a notebook under my bed where I wrote everything down. Dates, times, what he did, where he touched me, what he said. I wrote it all. I didn't know how or when I would use it, but writing gave me a little power. Like I was telling someone, even if that someone was just paper. One day, a woman came to our school to talk about something called safe places. She said, "If someone is hurting you at home, there are places you can go. People who will listen. Even if it's your family." I looked at her the whole time. Her name was Mrs. Clara. She was wearing a yellow scarf and had kind eyes. I wanted to run to her after class. But when the bell rang, my father was already at the school gate waiting in his truck. So I wrote her name in my notebook and waited. Days passed. Then weeks. My father began again. One night, he came into my room and locked the door. That night, he didn't just abuse me. He beat me until my eye turned purple and my mouth bled. When it was over, I lay there shaking. He whispered in my ear, "You still belong to me." The next morning, I couldn't hide the bruises. My teacher, Mr. Ben, saw my face and asked me gently, "What happened, Alma?" I lied. I said I fell in the bathroom. But he didn't look convinced. I wanted to cry, but I was too scared. That afternoon I made a big decision. I stayed behind after school and walked to the counselor's office. When I got there, my legs were shaking. I opened the door and saw her, Mrs. Clara, the woman with the yellow scarf. She looked up and smiled. "Can I help you, sweetheart?" I burst into tears. I told her everything. Every detail. I showed her my notebook. She didn't say a word while I spoke. She just held my hand. When I was done, she stood up and hugged me tightly. "You are so brave," she whispered. So brave." She promised me that everything would be okay. That she would protect me. That she would take care of everything. But when I got home that day, the worst thing happened. My mother was already standing at the door with the belt in her hand. She had found my notebook. And she had read everything. "Who did you tell?" she screamed, beating me before I could speak. I fell to the ground, my arms over my head. "Please, Mama, please. I told you to be quiet. Now your father could go to jail because of you," she shouted. "I don't care anymore," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I don't care what happens to him. I want him to pay for what he did to me." That's when she kicked me hard in the ribs. That night, they locked me in the small storehouse behind our house. It was cold. There were rats. I had nothing to eat. I stayed there for 2 whole days. No food. No water. Just pain. But then, on the 3rd night, I heard footsteps. Low. Careful. coming closer, and the lock turned. The door opened, and standing in front of me was my father, with a rope in his hand, and a wild look in his eyes. He whispered, "If you want to destroy this family, then I'll destroy you first." The day I finally broke down, I screamed louder than I ever had. My voice echoed through the walls of that old house, but nobody came. I was lying in my own blood after Papa had hit me with a metal belt for not cleaning the windows fast enough. I begged him to stop. I screamed that I was pregnant again. But he just walked out, leaving me curled up on the floor like a dying animal. That was the fifth baby inside me. And like the others, it didn't stay. He dragged me to the back room the next day, handed me a dirty cloth to bite on and said, "Don't make noise. You know what happens if you do." That was how they aborted it. No doctor. No nurse. Just a woman called Clara who wore heavy perfume to mask the scent of herbs and blood. She used her hands and old tools, muttering prayers while I cried and bled. The pain was worse than death, but I survived again. Just barely. I didn't understand why I kept surviving. Why God wouldn't just let me die. Maybe it was for this story. Maybe it was for justice. But what scared me more was that I was starting to forget how many times it had happened. My body was numb, but my soul was cracking. After that last abortion, I stopped talking. For weeks, I didn't say a word to anyone. I didn't eat. I didn't cry. I just stared at the wall until I heard noises that weren't there. My little sister, Camila, started bringing me bits of bread at night, sneaking it under the door like I was a prisoner. Her eyes were always wide with fear. She knew. She knew everything. One night I heard her whisper through the door, "I saw Papa touch Anna too." Anna was our baby cousin. Just 6 years old. That was the night I decided I couldn't let it continue. I waited for Papa to fall asleep. I took the sharpest kitchen knife I could find and crept into his room. I stood over him for what felt like forever. His mouth hung open, snoring loud like thunder. My hands shook, and my heart beat so loud I thought it would wake him up. But I couldn't do it. I dropped the knife and ran. The next morning, he found the knife beside his bed. He stormed into the kitchen and slapped me so hard I couldn't hear for 2 days. "Are you planning to kill me, you witch?" I said nothing. He locked me in the goat shed for a week. No food. No water. Just the smell of waste and rotting hay. Camila came every night with water in a cup and bread in a napkin. When I got out, my skin was covered in rashes, and I was weak like a bird with broken wings. I sat on the floor by the fire and stared into the flames. My stepmother Maria was cooking. She didn't look at me. "You should have killed him when you had the chance," she muttered without turning her head. My heart stopped. She knew too. I wanted to ask her why she never helped. Why she let him destroy me again and again. But I was too tired. Later that week, the police came to our house. Apparently, someone had reported screams from our home. Papa told them we had a sick dog. He even showed them an old injured mutt he had tied behind the house. The police laughed and left. That same night, Papa came into my room with a hammer. He didn't use it on me. He just waved it in my face and said, "Next time you try something foolish, I'll use this." Then he dropped it beside my bed and left. I didn't sleep that night. I held that hammer in my hands and cried. Not for myself, but for Camila, for Anna, for the babies I lost, for my voice that had become a ghost. 3 weeks later, a letter came. It was from a hospital in the city. Apparently, Clara, the woman who did the abortions, had been arrested. Someone had told the authorities she was operating illegally and hurting young girls. Papa burned the letter. But I had already read it. That gave me an idea. If Clara had been arrested, maybe I could tell the police what happened to me. Maybe they would believe me now. But I needed proof. So I started writing everything down. Every time he touched me, every time he beat me, every time I bled. I hid the paper under a loose tile behind the stove. One day, Camila saw me crying and hugged me tightly. She whispered, "I want to run away with you." That was the first time in months I had smiled. We made a plan. I would sneak out at midnight and take her with me. We would go to the church and tell the priest. Maybe he would help us. But when midnight came and I went to her room, her bed was empty. Gone, vanished. I ran through the house like a mad woman, shaking every corner, calling her name. Then I found the note. I heard Papa say he would send me away like he sent Clara's daughter. Had to go. Don't come after me. I love you. My knees buckled. He had done something to Clara's daughter. That meant Clara had a daughter. And he was still doing the same to others. I ran to my hiding spot to get my journal, but the papers were gone. The tile was broken. He had found it. I turned around, and Papa was standing right behind me with a hammer in his hand. His eyes were full of fire. "Now you've done it," he said. Then he raised the hammer, high, very high, and brought it down. That was when everything went black. I remember lying on the floor of my small bedroom, clutching my chest as if the pain could be stopped by pressing hard enough. Blood ran down my thighs. It was the 5th time. The 5th baby. The 5th abortion forced on me by my father. I was only 16. My body was tired. My heart was broken. And this time something inside me snapped. I knew I was going to die if I didn't find a way out. That night I heard Papa talking to someone on the phone. "She's getting weaker," he said. "If she dies, we bury her in the bush and say she ran away." Froze. He was planning to get rid of me, forever. I crawled to the window and peeped outside. Mama was sitting alone in the dark, her eyes fixed on the sky like she was waiting for God to answer her silent prayers. I wanted to call her, but fear chained my tongue. My father controlled everything, even her tears. The next day I made a decision. I would escape. I didn't care where I would go, but I knew I couldn't stay one more day under that roof. When Papa left to the farm and Mama was in the market, I grabbed the little coins I had secretly saved and ran. I didn't pack anything, just my old slippers and the memory of pain. I ran through the village, past the river where I used to wash clothes, past the mango tree where Papa had once dragged me by the hair and beaten me with a branch. I didn't stop until my legs gave up under me. A woman named Carmen found me on the roadside. She was on her way from church, and when she saw my bruised face and bleeding legs, she dropped her Bible and lifted me into her car. I had fainted. I only remembered hearing her soft voice say, "Oh Lord, what kind of evil is this?" When I woke up, I was in a small clinic. A nurse was bandaging my body. Could barely move. Carmen sat beside me, holding my hand like I was her own daughter. "You're safe now," she said. Cried. I cried so much my throat burned. No one had ever said those words to me before. Safe. What was that? I didn't know. But something in her voice made me want to believe it. Carmen didn't just take me to the clinic. She took me into her home. Her husband, Diego, was a kind man with quiet eyes. He didn't ask questions. He only said, "You can stay as long as you need." I stayed in Carmen's house for months. She fed me, clothed me, and taught me how to pray again. But healing wasn't quick. I had nightmares. I would wake up screaming, sweating, and kicking. Carmen would come in, hold me, and rock me until I calmed down. One night I told her everything. I started from the first time Papa hurt me to the last baby that was taken from me. Carmen cried. She held my hands and said, "You are strong. You are not dirty. You are not a curse." I started to believe her. We went to the police. They opened a case. But when they went to arrest Papa, he had already run. The neighbors said he packed and left at night. No one had seen him since. Mama was there, standing in the corner with her head down. She didn't defend him. But she didn't speak against him either. That hurt me deeply. But Carmen reminded me, some people are broken so badly they can't even help themselves. With time I started school again. I was the oldest in my class, but I didn't care. I wanted to become a nurse so I could help girls like me. Girls who had suffered but survived. I wrote about my story in a book. Carmen helped me publish it. It became known in my town, then across the country. I was invited to speak at schools, churches, and even on television. I was scared at first, but each time I told my story I felt lighter, like a chain was breaking off my soul. One day after a talk, a teenage girl came up to me and whispered, "My uncle is doing the same to me." I hugged her and cried with her. That's when I knew my pain had a purpose. Years later, I built a small shelter for girls like me. I called it Casa de Esperanza, House of Hope. Every room had a bed, a warm blanket, and a name painted on the door. You are loved. You are not alone. You are worthy. I never saw my father again. I heard he died in another village, poor and alone. I didn't cry. I didn't rejoice either. Felt nothing. He had already taken too much from me. I wouldn't give him my tears too. Mama grew older and sicker. One day, Carmen brought her to my shelter. I wanted to scream at her, ask her why she never protected me. But when I saw her weak body and tired eyes, I saw a woman who was also a victim in her own way. She never said sorry, but she held my hand and whispered, "You became everything I was too afraid to be." That was enough. Now I'm an old woman. I sit in a rocking chair with children playing at my feet. They call me Grandma Rosa. They don't know my full story, and that's okay. What matters is that I survived. I turned my wounds into wisdom, my pain into purpose. To every girl out there, you are not what happened to you. You are who you choose to become. And no matter how dark your night is, the sun always rises. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it so more people can learn and heal. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that inspire strength, hope, and survival. You are never alone.